By the time they called my name, the man who betrayed me was already sweating. The lights in the hotel ballroom were too bright, the kind that made everything look cleaner and more perfect than it really was. 300 people sat in neat rows. Investors in pressed suits, creators in hoodies and sneakers, old colleagues who once walked past my desk without seeing me. A few faces from my past that I wished had stayed there. And right in the center of it all, under a crystal chandelier that hummed with white light, stood Ryan Reed, founder and CEO of Streamline, the man who had once looked me in the eyes and told me we were in this together. The man who had later pushed a folder across a glass table and asked me to sign away my job, my role, and years of my life with one shaky signature. He gripped the microphone like it was the only thing keeping him upright. Behind him, the giant LED screen showed his company's logo, a smooth, polished version of a sketch I had drawn on a napkin years ago. He was finishing his speech. "And as we look toward the next chapter," he said, voice just a little too tight, "we knew we needed a partner that understood creators the way we do, a company that has shown incredible growth and vision." He swallowed. The cameras caught it. The audience didn't miss it. "Our new strategic partner," he continued, "has built a platform that's changing the way independent creators run their businesses. Please welcome the founder and CEO of RiseFrame." He paused. You could hear the small hitch in his breath. "Maya Chen." For a heartbeat, the room was silent. Then the applause hit like a wave. I stood up. The sound rolled over me, through me, around me, a strange mix of claps and murmurs, like everyone was trying to decide if they already knew this moment would be big. I smoothed the front of my black dress, adjusted the mic pack at my waist, and started walking down the center aisle. People turned to look. Some smiled, some whispered. A few, the ones who had been around long enough to know the whole story, just stared with their mouths a little open. They understood what this really was. This wasn't just a business announcement. This was a collision. The girl he had thrown away was walking toward his stage, as the woman he had to introduce as his equal. My heels sank softly into the thick carpet. I counted my steps the way I used to count breaths during panic attacks. 1, 2, 3. On the screens, a live feed showed me moving through the crowd. My face calm, my eyes steady. Inside, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. It wasn't rage, that had burned hot for months and then cooled into something sharper. It wasn't even satisfaction. That came in small moments, new customers, quiet wins, never as loudly as people imagine. What I felt walking down that aisle was a strange, deep calm. Not the kind you get from pretending you're okay, the kind you earn by walking through fire, coming out the other side, and realizing you don't need anyone else to burn for you to feel warm. I stepped onto the stage. The lights were hot on my skin. The applause faded into a soft hush. Ryan turned toward me. Up close, he looked older than the last time I had seen him in person. There were lines at the corners of his eyes that hadn't been there before. A tiny scar on his jaw I didn't recognize, a stiffness in his shoulders that the old Ryan would have called a bad vibe. He held out his hand, his smile a little too wide. "Maya," he said into the mic, "we've come a long way." I took the microphone instead of his hand. A few people laughed, thinking it was a joke. I didn't. "Yeah," I said, my voice carrying through the speakers. "We really have." I turned toward the audience. Rows of faces stared back at me. Phones held up, cameras blinking red. A few creators I recognized from their channels, a row of executives from Mega Media sitting together near the front. You know that line people throw around like it's some wise quote? "Success is the best revenge." For a long time, I thought it was just something people said when they were too scared to admit they wanted to get even. Something weak. Something soft. I glanced at Ryan for half a second. It turned out that line was truer than I ever imagined. But the part nobody tells you is that it doesn't start here, in a glamorous ballroom under crystal chandeliers. It starts a lot earlier. It starts on nights when you cry so hard alone in your apartment that your chest hurts. On mornings when you stare at a blank screen and wonder if you're delusional. On days when nobody believes in you, not even you. It starts the moment someone decides you are replaceable, and you decide you're not. I adjusted the microphone. I know this is supposed to be a clean little partnership announcement, I said, and a few people chuckled. But for me, this is more than that. This is personal. I let the word hang in the air. I'm not going to pretend this is just business, I went on, because the man standing next to me once fired me from the company I helped him build. The room went still. Ryan's smile froze, then faded. People leaned in. Somewhere in the back, I heard a dropped fork clatter onto a plate. If you've ever been betrayed, I said softly, if you've ever given everything to someone who turned around and acted like you were nothing, this story is for you. I took a breath. Let me tell you how we got here. And just like that, the bright ballroom faded from my mind, and I was back in that cramped, noisy office where it all began. Back when I still believed that loyalty guaranteed a happy ending. Back when I was just the girl in the corner who made things work. Before I was Maya Chen, founder and CEO of RiseFrame, I was Maya who's just grateful to be here. At least, that's how everyone treated me. The startup was called Streamline, and in the beginning, it didn't look anything like the sleek company splashed across tech blogs later. It was 4 desks shoved into a cramped room on the 6th floor of an old building that still smelled like burned coffee and printer ink from the last tenants. We had a faulty air conditioner, a water cooler that made unsettling noises, and circuits that tripped every time someone heated up lunch and ran a Zoom call at the same time. But to us, it felt like the center of the world. And at the center of it all was Ryan. We met in college. He was that guy everyone gravitated toward in group projects, quick with jokes, always standing up to present. I was usually the one behind the slides, fixing numbers and cleaning up the mess underneath his confident speeches. We'd stayed in touch after graduation. He joined a big firm and learned how to talk to rich people over expensive lunches. I bounced between small roles, product assistant here, UX designer there, never quite being senior enough for the title I was already doing the work for. One night, my phone lit up with his name. Guess who just convinced 3 investors to trust him with a very stupid amount of money? He'd said, laughing into the receiver. I remember pacing my tiny apartment, stepping over an open suitcase of laundry, trying not to sound as excited as I felt. What are you building? I asked. A platform for creators, he said. Not just another social thing, a real tool. Dashboards, analytics, scheduling, audience control. You know, the stuff you used to rant about in the library at 2 a.m. I sank onto my couch. You mean the thing we used to rant about? I corrected. He was quiet for half a second. Then he laughed. Yeah, he said, the thing we used to rant about. Look, I want you in this. I'm serious. Product, experience, the whole thing. I'll handle the investors. You handle the actual brains of it. Are you offering me a job? I asked. I'm offering you a seat at the table, he replied. Not just as an employee, as my right hand. We'll do this together, just like we always said. He didn't send me a contract. He didn't talk numbers. I didn't ask. I should have, but back then all I could hear was the sound of opportunity knocking. So I said yes. On my first day at Streamline, I walked into the office in a blazer I couldn't afford, and sneakers I could. 3 guys were huddled around a table covered in cables, arguing about whether server stuff really mattered if the demo looked good. Ryan stood in the middle, explaining something with big hand motions. There she is, he shouted when he saw me. Everyone, this is Maya. She's going to make sure this whole thing doesn't fall apart. They laughed. I smiled. He walked over and hugged me like we were still those kids in the library. You ready to build the future? He asked. I was. More than I'd ever been ready for anything. The early days almost felt romantic in a strange, tired way. We worked late. We ordered cheap takeout and ate it straight from the boxes, leaning over laptops. We scribbled on whiteboards until the markers ran dry. We argued about button colors like it mattered more than rent. Ryan had one talent no one could deny. He could talk. He could walk into a room full of people with more money than empathy and convince them that streamline was the missing piece in the creator economy. Meanwhile, I had my own talent. I could take his big, flashy promises and turn them into real flows, real features, real screens that actual humans could use without wanting to throw their computers out the window. We made a good team. Or at least, that's what I told myself. We'd stay in the office until midnight, just the two of us left, lights buzzing overhead, streetlights glowing through the windows. "One day," he'd say, leaning back in his chair, "we're going to laugh about how small this office was." "One day," I'd add, "we're going to hire a cleaning service so I don't have to scrape dried coffee off this table again." He'd grin. "One day," he'd say, quieter, "we're going to prove all of them wrong." All of them. The professors who said we were naive, the managers who told me to wait my turn, the recruiters who looked at my resume and saw assistant instead of builder. Those nights felt like something sacred. We weren't just co-workers. We were co-dreamers. Or at least, that's what I thought. The first cracks started small. The kind of thing you can wave away if you want to. The first time I heard him pitch Streamline to an investor, he started with the story we'd always shared. "We saw how creators were juggling 10 tools just to survive," he said. "We wanted to fix that." We. I sat there, notebook open, nodding along like a proud parent. A few months later, in another meeting, I noticed something had shifted. "I've always believed creators deserve better tools," he said smoothly. "I wanted to give them a headquarters, a command center, a home. I looked around the room. Nobody else seemed to notice the pronoun change. After the meeting, in the elevator, I nudged him. "So," I joked, "when did this become your lifelong dream instead of our 2 a.m. rant?" He grinned. "Relax," he said. "It's just storytelling. You know investors love a singular visionary. You're the genius behind the scenes, my secret weapon." The words landed wrong. Secret weapon. It sounded flattering on the surface, but the thing about a secret weapon is no one sees it. They just see the person holding it. I shoved the feeling aside. We were growing. We moved into a bigger office with glass walls and plants we tried not to kill. We hired more people, designers, engineers, support staff. Suddenly, I wasn't just building the product, I was managing a team. People started asking me questions. "What do you think, Maya? Should we prioritize this feature? How do we fix this bug?" For the first time in my career, I felt like my voice mattered, at least in the product room. But when the cameras came out, when the blog interviews happened, when there was a chance to shine, the spotlight always seemed to find Ryan. "Meet the man revolutionizing the creator economy," one article said. There was a picture of him, arms folded, standing in front of our logo. A short piece quoted him extensively. There was one line about me. His right hand, Maya, helps bring his vision to life. His vision. I read that line alone in the office one night, the glow of my monitor making my reflection look washed out and tired. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself the work mattered more than the credit. I told myself we were on the same team. I didn't know yet that I was on borrowed time, that the story he was telling the world didn't have a permanent place for me in it. The real turning point came on a Thursday that smelled like rain and burnt coffee. Mega Media had reached out. Mega Media, the largest content network in the region, huge brands, huge distribution, huge everything. If we landed them as a partner, Streamline would stop being promising and start being inevitable. "This is it," Ryan kept saying, pacing around the office like a caged animal. "This is the one that changes everything. Maya, whatever you're working on, drop it. I need you on this." I did more than he asked. I practically lived inside that project. For 3 weeks, my life was wireframes, prototypes, revisions, late-night calls, and the constant hum of my overworked laptop fan. I rebuilt dashboards from scratch. I designed a creator cockpit that let Mega Media's partners see everything at a glance: sales, audience, engagement, events. I mocked up a new analytics layer. Clean, simple, trustworthy. I poured myself into it, because somewhere deep down, I believed that if I did this right, he'd finally see. Not just that I was useful, that I was crucial. On the day of the pitch, I walked into the office with my hair still damp from a rushed shower, clutching a coffee I'd forgotten to sweeten. The prototype was done. The slides were done. The numbers were checked 3 times. I uploaded everything to our shared folder. "Final version of the Mega Media pitch is in," I messaged him. "Want to run through it one more time before we go?" He replied in seconds. "You're a lifesaver," he wrote. "I'll take it from here. Go home early if you can. You've done enough." I felt a tiny pinch in my chest. "Are we not going together?" I typed back. "They only want one point of contact," he answered. "Too many faces confuses them. You know how corporate people are. Don't worry, I'll sing your praises." I stared at the screen. I remembered the last big meeting we had gone to together, how he'd spoken over me, how I'd sat there quietly, holding on to the demos while he sold them, as if they had sprung fully formed from his imagination. This time, I wanted to be in the room. I wanted them to see who shaped the thing they were buying. "I'd still like to be there," I wrote. "Even if I don't talk much, it's important context for me." He didn't answer right away. When he did, the message was short. "Next time," he wrote. "This one's already set. I need to keep it clean. Trust me." I stared at the words, "trust me," until they blurred. Trust had always been my default setting with him. He needed that from me. I wasn't sure I could give it so easily anymore, but it was too late to argue. He left for the meeting in his best suit, hair perfectly in place, a leather portfolio under his arm. "You nailed this, Maya," he said, tapping my desk on the way out. "I'll bring it home." I watched him go. Then I went back to my monitor and opened the prototype again, clicking through the transitions like a nervous parent straightening a kid's collar before a big performance. The meeting was scheduled for an hour. He was gone almost 3. When he came back, the energy in the office changed instantly. People stood up, someone clapped. "Did we get it?" one of our engineers called out. He grinned. "They love us," he said, raising his arms. "We're signing a conditional agreement. If we hit the next milestone on time, Mega Media is in." The room exploded into cheers. Someone popped a bottle of cheap champagne from the kitchenette. Foam sprayed over a stack of boxes. Nobody cared. Ryan grabbed a flute of champagne and walked to my desk. I stood up. "Well?" I asked, heart pounding. "How did they react to the creator cockpit? Did they say anything about the new metrics view? Did they—" He cut me off with a hug. "You did great," he said into my hair. "They ate it up, especially the way I framed the overall vision." I pulled back. "The vision?" I repeated. "Yeah," he said, already half-turned toward the rest of the room. "I told you I know how to sell. You know how to build. Dream team." He raised his glass. "To Mega Media!" he shouted. "To Mega Media!" everyone echoed. I sipped my champagne mechanically. The sugar stuck to my teeth. Something inside me itched. A few days later, I started noticing other small things. An internal deck about our origin story circulated among new hires. It was slick, polished, full of Ryan's face. There was a slide titled The Spark. It said, "Ryan saw creators struggling to manage their digital lives and decided to build them a control center. Streamline." No mention of the library at 2 a.m. No mention of the girl who had been ranting about it long before his investors ever took his calls. I sat at my desk, surrounded by the gentle tap-tap of keyboards, and felt a weird kind of vertigo. It was like watching yourself disappear in slow motion, piece by piece, layer by layer. And then came the meeting, the one that shattered whatever illusions I had left. It was on a Monday. I remember because I was already tired and it was barely noon. My calendar pinged with an unexpected event. "Quick sync, HR," the invite read. I almost laughed. We didn't do quick syncs with HR. At a startup, HR was for paperwork and tax forms, not surprise meetings. I walked into the small conference room, the one with the glass walls and the permanent smell of dry erase markers. Megan from HR sat at the table, her laptop open. She avoided my eyes just a second too long. Across from her sat Ryan. He smiled when I came in. Not the full, easy grin I knew. A tight one.
"Hey, Maya," he said. "Take a seat."
I sat. My palms were already sweating, even though I didn't know why yet. Megan cleared her throat. "Thanks for joining us," she said. "We know this is a little last minute." "What's going on?" I asked. She glanced at Ryan. He nodded. She folded her hands. "I'll be direct," she said. "As you know, we've grown quickly over the past year. With the mega media deal, investor expectations have increased. The board's been reviewing our structure, and they have concerns about certain roles and fit." The word fit made my stomach twist. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means," Ryan said carefully, "that things are going to have to change if we're going to get to the next level." I laughed, short and humorless. "Okay," I said. "So what changes are we talking about?" Megan slid a folder across the table. My hands didn't move to take it. "Maya," she said softly, "we're eliminating your role." There was a ringing in my ears. Eliminating. I didn't pick up the folder. "You're firing me," I said slowly. "We're restructuring," she corrected gently. "Your responsibilities will be absorbed by a new VP of product the board wants to bring in. Someone with more enterprise experience." "Enterprise experience," I repeated. "A man in a suit who's never talked to an actual creator." Megan flinched. "I'm sorry," she started. I turned to Ryan. "You signed off on this?" I asked. "After everything we've built together?" He sighed. "Maya," he said, putting on his reasonable CEO voice, "this isn't personal. You know I value you. I wouldn't be here without you." "But you're okay with going forward without me," I said. He opened his mouth, closed it, then finally nodded. "I have to think about the company," he said. "About everyone's jobs, not just one person." "Not just one person," I repeated. "Just the person who designed the product you're selling. The one who built the thing you pitched to Mega Media as your vision." His jaw tightened. "There have also been concerns about communication," he added, as if he'd been waiting to say it. "Some confusion in the team. Delays hitting milestones." I stared at him. "Are you talking about the milestones you moved without telling anyone?" I asked. "The features you promised on calls and then told me about 48 hours before the deadline?" Megan shifted in her seat. "This is hard," she murmured. "We know your contribution has been significant, which is why we're offering a generous severance package and a very positive reference. We really do appreciate—" I held up a hand. "Please don't say you appreciate me right after you've taken my chair away," I said quietly. "It sounds strange, even for a startup." We sat in silence for a few seconds. I finally picked up the folder. On the first page, in black and white, was the language. Termination of employment agreement. I flipped through the pages, legal phrases blurred together, then a line snapped into focus. All intellectual property, concepts, designs, and product strategies created by the employee during their tenure are the exclusive property of Streamline. All my work, all the flows, all the dashboards, all the late-night ideas, legally his. I looked up. "Did you know this sentence was here when we were eating cold pizza at midnight and talking about our platform?" I asked. He couldn't hold my gaze. "I'm following advice," he said. "It's standard." "No," I said. "Lying to your friend while you build an escape hatch is not standard. That's a choice." He spread his hands like he was helpless. "Maya, you know how hard this is for me," he said. "I'm losing my right hand, but this is about survival." I thought about all the times he'd said "we" when things were going well, and "I" whenever credit was up for grabs. I thought about him walking into that mega media meeting alone. I thought about him offering my work to them as proof of his genius. I thought about the word fit. In that moment, I understood something cold and clear. To him, I'd never been at the table. I'd just been really good at setting it. I closed the folder. "I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of falling apart in this room," I said quietly. "Maya," he started. "No," I cut in. "You made your decision. Own it." I stood up. My legs felt shaky, but I made it to the door. My hand was on the handle when his voice stopped me. "You'll land on your feet," he said. "You're talented. You just weren't the right leader for where we're going." I turned around and looked at him. "For a long time," I said, "I believed you when you told me who I was. I believed you when you said I was your partner, your second brain, your secret weapon. So I'm going to give you one thing back." He frowned. "What's that?" he asked. "You don't get to tell me who I am anymore," I said. I walked out, past the desks I helped assemble, past the walls I'd covered in Post-its, past the teammates who looked up with puzzled expressions, sensing that something had shifted but not yet knowing what. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't stop to clear out my things. I just kept moving. The elevator ride to the lobby felt longer than my entire career. When the doors opened and I stepped out onto the sidewalk, the sky opened up. Rain drenched me in seconds. It soaked my hair, ran down my cheeks, slid under my collar. I tilted my head back and let it, because in that moment, it felt like the only honest thing happening. On that sidewalk, with cars rushing past and a building I had poured myself into glowing behind me, one thought repeated in my head over and over like a broken record. He won. He used me, erased me, replaced me. He was inside with investors. I was outside with ruined makeup and a folder full of cold, legal language. He won. I walked home in the rain because I didn't have anything left in me to call a cab. I didn't know it yet, but that long, wet walk was the start of something. I thought I'd left Streamline behind. I didn't realize I was walking toward Rise Frame. The week after I was fired was a blur of nothing, the kind of nothing that feels heavy. You think when you finally get a break from grinding 18-hour days that you'll catch up on sleep, on hobbies, on friends. I didn't. I stayed up late scrolling, news about Streamline everywhere. Riding the wave with Mega Media. Streamline's CEO talks about the future of the creator economy. Photos of Ryan on stage, beaming, talking about his vision. I watched one clip. He spoke smoothly, hands cutting the air. "We've always believed creators deserve better tools," he said. "I built Streamline to give them a headquarters, one place to run their entire world. I threw my phone onto the couch and stared at the ceiling. You know that numb place your brain goes when it's too tired to keep crying? That's where I lived for a while. My friends messaged, "Are you okay? What happened?" "That's so messed up, Maya." I answered with emojis and vague lines. "Yeah, I'll be fine. Yeah, these things happen. Yeah, it sucks." I didn't tell them that some nights I sat on my bathroom floor, holding onto the edge of the sink like I was bracing for impact, trying to convince myself to stand up. I didn't tell them that every time my phone lit up, I hoped, in some stupid part of me, that it would be Ryan saying, "I made a mistake. Come back." It never was. One night, around 2 a.m., I made the mistake of opening the severance folder again. I scanned past the official language about dates and terms and non-disparagement. My gaze snagged on the IP clause again. All concepts, strategies, designs, property of Streamline. Everything I had built for them was officially his, even if no one ever knew how much of it was mine. I laughed, a raw, ugly sound that bounced around my empty apartment. "Congratulations," I whispered to no one. "You took it all." I almost posted something. I opened a blank tweet, typed, "If you work for Streamline, you deserve to know how your CEO really treats people." My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I imagined the replies, some supportive, some defensive, some accusing me of being bitter, jealous, unprofessional. I imagined Ryan's PR team turning it into a story about a disgruntled ex-employee. I imagined my name becoming a warning. Don't hire her, she's trouble. I deleted the draft, closed the app, stared at my own reflection in the black screen of the TV. Who are you? I whispered. If you're not his second brain? The silence didn't answer. The next morning, I made coffee and sat at my kitchen table with my laptop. Not because I had work, just because sitting there felt less like sinking. I started going through old folders, partly to torture myself, partly to see if there was anything at all, I could salvage. Presentations, design files, notes from user interviews. Most of it was too tied to Streamline, too risky to touch. Then I saw a folder I didn't recognize at first. It was tucked between two generic ones. Personal concepts. My heart did a small, confused skip. I clicked it. Inside were rough sketches and notes from a time before Streamline existed. Their timestamps were old. Some were from before I'd even graduated. Ideas that hadn't fit anywhere. Features other managers had called too ambitious. Experiments I'd built on weekends just because my brain wouldn't shut up. One folder was labeled Project Frame. I opened it. Up came a document with my own messy writing. Working title, Rise Frame, Goal, give solo creators one simple frame that holds everything. Audience, payments, content, events, so they stop living inside 10 tabs and 5 panic attacks. I remembered. Late nights at my old apartment. Sitting on the floor with my back against the bed, laptop on my thighs, dreaming about a tool that didn't just track numbers, but held a creator's whole world in one place. I'd brought a version of it to Streamline, pitched it during one planning meeting. What if, I'd said, gesturing at the whiteboard, instead of just analytics, we build a control center creators can actually live inside, a real home base. Ryan had smiled. I like the passion, he'd said, but we need quick wins right now. Investors want simple metrics. Save the big stuff for later, okay? Keep this in your back pocket. So I had, and then I'd forgotten that back pocket even existed. Until now. My fingers trembled on the keyboard. This idea hadn't been drawn up under Streamline's roof. This was older. Mine. Pre-him. Pre-them. He could own my past work. He could claim my dashboards, my flows, my features. But he didn't own this. He didn't own what I could build next. A tiny spark lit in the dark cave of my chest. It wasn't joy. Not yet. It was more like defiance. So you fired me, I thought. So you locked up my old work behind legal clauses. Fine. Then I'll build something you don't have the keys to. I grabbed an old notebook from my shelf and flipped to a blank page. My hand shook as I wrote, in ugly, all-caps letters that pressed hard into the paper. Success is my revenge. Then, under it, in smaller letters, this is my I win button. I stared at the sentence. It seemed ridiculous and dramatic and childish and painfully honest all at once. I left the notebook open on the table, got up, washed my coffee mug, came back, sat down again, and opened a new file on my laptop. File name, Rise Frame, Vice 0. The document blinked at me, empty, waiting. Okay, I said to myself, let's see what you can do without him. If anyone ever tells you that rebuilding your life is glamorous, they're lying. My comeback didn't start with a perfect brand, a big announcement, or a sudden bolt of genius. It started with a schedule, the simplest thing in the world, the hardest thing to stick to when no one is watching. I printed out a blank week template and taped it to my wall. Mornings, learn. Afternoons, build Rise Frame. Evenings, freelance work to pay rent. Nights, doubt, if it came, but no more than an hour at a time. I treated my days like a job, even though no one was paying me yet. At 8 a.m., I sat at my desk, whether I wanted to or not. At noon, I ate something that wasn't delivery at least once. At 3 p.m., I opened the Rise Frame file, even when the voice in my head whispered that it was pointless. I started small. I picked one narrow group, not all creators everywhere. independent coaches, and online teachers. Women like me who were piecing together a living from courses, communities, live sessions, and digital products, while juggling 5 platforms that weren't designed to care about their sanity. I wrote one line at the top of a planning doc. If I could make their lives 20% less chaotic, how? Not, how do I get investors to write big checks? Not, how do I crush Streamline? Just, how do I help this one person in one real way? I sketched out the simplest version of Rise Frame. Core features only. A place for their audience to live. A clean way to sell and deliver their courses. Basic analytics that showed what actually mattered. An event setup that didn't require 3 browser tabs and a prayer. I cut everything that didn't serve that. Smart recommendations? Later. Fancy automation? Later. Public profiles? Later. I had learned the hard way at Streamline that big visions are easy to sell and hard to keep alive. I wanted something that could survive. The first few weeks of building were a weird mix of hope and misery. There were days I coded for 6 hours straight, forgetting to drink water, riding the high of, oh, this is actually working. There were days I stared at the screen, cursor blinking, paralyzed by thoughts like, what if this is a waste of time? What if he was right about me not being leadership material? What if I'm just proving him right? On those days, I'd open my notebook and reread that messy sentence. Success is my revenge. Not a tweet, not a public statement, just a promise to myself. I said it out loud sometimes, just to hear it. It felt cheesy. It also kept me going. Money ran low fast. Severance covered a couple of months, but San Francisco rent didn't care that I was on a hero's journey. So I took on freelance contracts, landing pages, UX audits, quick fixes for platforms I didn't care about. In the beginning, it stung. Going from head of product to, can you fix this button for $200, felt like moving backwards. But then I changed the story in my head. This isn't desperation, I told myself. This is fundraising. I am bootstrapping Rise Frame with my skills instead of someone else's money. It sounds like a small shift. It wasn't. It gave my tiredness a purpose. Half my hours went into keeping me alive. The other half went into building the life I wanted. Some nights, after a long freelance call, I'd stare at my calendar and think, this is too much. You can't do this. Then I'd open the Rise Frame app and tweak one tiny thing, a margin, an error message, a loading state, just one. Forward is forward, I'd tell myself. One afternoon, a notification popped up from an old client. I had helped her redesign her site ages ago. She wrote, "Hey Maya, I heard you left Streamline. Are you doing your own thing now?" My heart rate picked up. This was it. The moment I stopped building in total secret. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Do I tell her? I wondered. What if this never goes anywhere? What if I sound ridiculous? I typed anyway. Hey, yeah, I'm working on something new for online course creators. It's early, but it's focused on making their setup less of a headache. If you know anyone like that, I'd love to chat. She replied quickly. You just described my friend Lena. She's drowning in tech. I'll intro you. 20 minutes later, I had an email in my inbox with the subject line, You plus my favorite chaos goblin, Eel's perfect match. We set up a call. On the screen, Lena looked exactly like the woman my concept doc was written for. Messy bun, hoodie, a wall of sticky notes behind her, tired eyes. Full disclosure, she said, right after hello. I almost canceled this. I'm so burned out on tools promising they'll simplify my life and then giving me 12 new dashboards. I get it, I said. And I won't pretend Rise Frame is magical. It's not. It's just a little less terrible than what you're using now. She laughed, shoulders dropping half an inch. That is honestly all I'm asking for, she said. Less terrible. I didn't pitch her features. I asked her questions. How many platforms are you on right now? What breaks most often? When do you feel most stressed during a launch? What do you wish you could do for your students that feels impossible? She talked. I took notes as fast as I could. At the end of the call, she sighed. "If you build anything close to what we just talked about," she said, "I will happily throw money at you." "Careful," I said. "I'm going to remember you said that." We both laughed. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my apartment, staring at my notes. For the first time since leaving Streamline, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Useful. I built like my life depended on it, because in a way, it did. 3 weeks later, I sent her a link. "It's ugly," I warned her, "but it works. Be brutal." She and 10 of her students used RiseFrame for a live workshop. Everything broke at least once. A payment didn't process on time. An email didn't send. The event page crashed twice. I sat at my desk with my heart in my throat, fixing things as fast as I could while messages flooded in. By the end of the night, I was exhausted. My back hurt. My eyes burned. I was sure she'd tell me it wasn't worth the trouble. Instead, she sent a voice note. "Maya, I'm not kidding," she said, laughing. "This is the calmest launch I've had in a year. It wasn't perfect, but for once the tech issues didn't eat my soul. Please keep building this." I played that message 3 times. Not to feed my ego, to remind myself that my work could help someone even when it wasn't shiny. Lena told 2 of her friends. They told 2 of theirs. Slowly, quietly, RiseFrame started growing. No big launch, no TechCrunch article, no viral thread. Just creators, exhausted and desperate, telling each other in DMs, "Hey, I found this thing that actually makes my life less horrible. Talk to this woman named Maya." I made a landing page. "For creators tired of juggling 10 tools, we give you one." That was it. No buzzwords, no press kit, just a form. Names started trickling in. Not hundreds, not yet, but more than 0. And more than 0 is more than nothing. I was still freelancing, still answering support emails myself, still building at my kitchen table. But something had shifted inside me. I wasn't staring at the ruins of what Ryan had done to me anymore. I was laying the foundation of something he couldn't touch. I realized something important in that stretch of months. Revenge had gotten me out of bed. Anger had put my hands on the keyboard. But it wasn't what kept me there. What kept me there was watching a woman DM me. I slept the night before my launch for the first time in 3 years. You have no idea what that means. That meant more than any boardroom applause, more than any title, more than any name tag. Still, the past has a way of finding you when you start to move on. And mine showed up in my inbox on a random Tuesday. I was debugging a weird time zone issue in RiseFrame's event scheduler when my email pinged. I almost ignored it. I had a strict "don't open your inbox every 5 minutes" rule, and I was right in the middle of figuring out why a countdown timer thought midnight was 3 a.m. in Berlin. But the subject line dragged my attention anyway. Inquiry about RiseFrame. The sender's domain made my heart stutter. Mega Media. For a second, I thought I was seeing things. I clicked. "Dear Ms. Chen," the email began. "We've recently become aware of your platform, RiseFrame, through several of our content partners. We're currently exploring long-term tools to support our creators and would be interested in learning more about your capabilities. Would you be open to a conversation?" I read it twice, then a 3rd time. Recently become aware. Several of our content partners. Creators I'd never met were talking about RiseFrame in rooms I'd once been cut out of. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Mega Media. The same company whose deal Streamline had used to justify firing me. The same company I'd built that vision for. If this was a movie, this is where the dramatic music would swell. In reality, I just sat there, blinking, while my tea went cold. After a few minutes, I moved my cursor to the reply button. My fingers were steady. "Hi," I wrote. "Thank you for reaching out. I'd be happy to talk. When are you available?" We set a time. An hour before the call, I sat on my couch, laptop open, staring at my reflection in the blank Zoom preview window. "You are not the girl they let go," I told myself. "You are the woman they invited." I clicked join. 3 faces popped up. David, head of creator partnerships, an engineering lead named Priya, and in the third square, a familiar face. "Wow," she blurted out before she could stop herself. "Maya?" It was Jess. She had been a mid-level product manager at Streamline back in the day. Now she was at Mega Media. David smiled, looking between us. "I'm guessing you two know each other?" he asked. "We used to work together," Jess said carefully. "At Streamline." I nodded. "Yes," I said. "We did." There was a brief, charged silence. Then we got to work. They asked about Rise Frame, our uptime, our roadmap, our approach to creator support. I didn't undersell. I didn't oversell. I told the truth. "We're small," I said. "Lean. We don't have 1,000 engineers, but we have enough to ship quickly and fix things when they break. We started by obsessing over one group, independent educators, and we built around their pain points, not ours." "That's refreshing," Priya said. "Most platforms come in with a fixed idea of what creators should want." "Yeah," I replied. "I've seen enough of that. I don't want to build another noisy dashboard nobody uses." We talked about data privacy, about migration paths, about support response times. Not once did I bring up Streamline. Not once did I say, "By the way, your current vendor threw me out." They did that themselves. "We've been having some challenges with our existing platform," David said delicately. "We've heard from several partners that they feel the tool was built to impress investors first, creators second." I couldn't help the tiny smile that flickered across my face. "I've seen that pattern," I said. "We're trying to be the opposite." The call lasted an hour. At the end, David said, "Thank you, Maya. This has been really helpful. We'll be in touch soon." I closed my laptop and blew out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. All the old ghosts were dancing in my head. The day of the Mega Media pitch, the folder in the HR meeting, the line about fit. 2 weeks passed. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello?" I answered. "Hi, is this Maya Chen?" a man's voice asked. "Yes." "This is David from Mega Media," he said. "Do you have a minute?" My pulse quickened. "Sure," I said, pretending calm. "I'll keep it short," he said. "We've decided to move forward with a pilot program using Rise Frame for a subset of our creators. If all goes well, we'd like to expand from there." I closed my eyes for a moment. "That sounds great," I said. "I appreciate the trust." "For transparency," he added, "we are in the process of phasing out our current platform. It hasn't met our needs, so timing-wise, this is good." I opened my eyes. Phasing out. Current platform, Streamline. "Understood," I said softly. We discussed logistics, next steps, legal. When we hung up, I sat back and let my head fall against the couch. The ceiling of my apartment had never looked so beautiful. Mega Media was leaving Streamline, not because I had campaigned against them, not because I'd dragged anyone online, simply because I was doing a better job. It should have felt like pure victory. A part of me did feel that sharp, satisfying click of justice. The girl who walked home in the rain wanted to dance, but another part of me felt something heavier. Grief, maybe. Because even though I hated what Ryan had done to me, there had been a time when we were just 2 kids in a library, sharing dreams. It's a strange thing to hold in your chest, to know that someone hurt you deeply, and also that a younger version of you loved them. Both can be true. A few days later, another email slid into my inbox. Subject line, "We should talk. Sender, Ryan@streamline.so." My heart dropped, then climbed back up too fast. I stared at it. My first instinct was to delete it unread. My second was to open it immediately. My third was to do both at once. I clicked. "Hey Maya," it read. "I heard through the grapevine that you're working with Mega Media now. Congrats! Can we jump on a call sometime this week? Would be good to catch up." Catch up? Like we hadn't last spoken in a room where he slid me a termination folder. Like he hadn't said, "This isn't personal," while signing off on my erasure. I closed my eyes. It's starting, I thought. This is the part in the revenge story where the villain realizes the hero survived. But this wasn't a movie. This was my life. I sat with the email for a long time. I thought about never replying, cutting that thread completely. But avoidance isn't always peace. Sometimes it's just silence with teeth. I didn't want him to live rent-free in my head forever. I wanted to face him, as the person I'd become since he pushed me out. So I sent a reply. "Hi, Ryan," I wrote. "Yes, I'm working with Mega Media. It's been a good fit. I can do a call Wednesday at 3 p.m. PST. Maya." No emojis, no warmth, just facts. On Wednesday, at 2:59, I sat at my desk and clicked the video link. His face appeared. For a moment, it was like time folded. He was older. I could see it in the set of his mouth, the slight sag in his shoulders. But his eyes, they were the same eyes that once stared at a whiteboard with me at midnight and said, "We're going to change everything." "Maya?" he said, smiling. "Wow. Hey." "Hi," I replied. Awkward silence filled the digital space between us. "I've been hearing your name a lot," he said. "Rise Frame seems to be everywhere lately." "We're growing," I said. "That Mega Media move was big," he added, watching my face. I said nothing. He cleared his throat. "Look," he said, "I know we didn't exactly end on good terms." I raised an eyebrow. "That's one way to describe firing someone and taking credit for their work," I said. He winced. "I deserve that," he said. "Yes," I replied. "You do." He took a breath. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. The words floated there. A few years ago, I might have grabbed them and held them tight, used them like a bandage. Now they just sat. "For what?" I asked. He blinked. "For how things went down," he said. "For making you feel disposable. For not giving you the recognition you deserved. For all of it." I leaned back. "Are you sorry because you see what you did?" I asked. "Or because Mega Media left and now I'm sitting in a position you thought belonged to you forever?" He hesitated. The pause was long enough to answer for him. "Both," he said finally. At least it was honest. I nodded slowly. "So," I said, "you wanted to talk? About what?" He looked away for a moment, then back at me. "I want to make you an offer," he said. I almost laughed. "An offer?" I repeated. He nodded, his jaw tense. "Streamline is struggling," he said. "The Mega Media decision hurt. So did a few others. We've lost some good people. The board is nervous, but we're not dead. We still have a strong brand, some solid tech, investor relationships." I watched him carefully. He continued. "You've clearly built something impressive," he said, "and I see now what I threw away when I let you go. So I've been thinking, what if we combined forces? Streamline and Rise Frame. A merger." I stared at him. He rushed on. "Hear me out," he said. "We merge the platforms, present a unified solution. You come on as co-CEO, equal footing. We go to Mega Media and the others as a joint front. We could be unstoppable together, Maya. For real this time." He finished and looked at me like a dog waiting for a treat. If this had happened a year earlier, I might have been tempted. The words co-CEO would have rolled around my head like candy. Old me would have seen it as validation, as proof that he finally saw my value. New me heard something else. Fear, not partnership. Survival instinct. "Let me get this straight," I said slowly. "You fired me, used my work to land big deals, wrote me out of the story, legalized my erasure. When I left, you were sure I'd vanish. Instead, I built something without you. That thing is now strong enough to replace you in the rooms you used to own. And your idea of my happy ending is to come back and fix the mess you made, as your co-equal." He winced again. "When you say it like that," he started. "That is how it is," I cut in. "You just didn't expect to hear it out loud." He was quiet. I leaned closer to the camera. "Ryan," I said, You still think you're the prize. He frowned. What? You think the ultimate reward for me, after everything, would be sitting next to you again, I said. You think the highest form of my success is being allowed back into your world, this time with a bigger title. He shook his head. That's not fair, he said. I'm offering real power here, real resources. I'm not saying you don't have something to offer, I replied. I'm saying your offer assumes I still want what you have more than what I've built. He looked genuinely confused. Don't you? He asked. I smiled, not cruelly, just sadly. I used to, I said. I used to think the only way to win was to be chosen by people like you, by boards, by investors, by men who walked into rooms and sucked up all the oxygen. I paused. But here's what I know now, I continued. I win by not needing you. The words were soft. They still hit like a hammer inside my own ribcage. He swallowed. Maya, I'm trying to make this right, he said, to fix what I broke. You can't fix what you broke by asking me to carry your consequences, I said. You want me to save Streamline, to save your position, to make everyone forget the decisions you made. That's not, he started. That is exactly what you're asking, I interrupted. You're not saying, how can I support RiseFrame? You're saying, how can RiseFrame support me? That's the difference. He looked away, jaw working. Do you hate me? He asked after a moment, voice tight. I thought about it. There had been a time when the answer was yes. Pure, unfiltered yes. But sitting there, in my worn t-shirt, hair in a messy bun, laptop balanced on a stack of books, I searched myself and realized something strange. I didn't. I did, I said honestly. For a long time. I imagined you losing everything. I imagined watching Streamline crumble, reading headlines, hearing whispers, and thinking, good, finally. He exhaled. And now? He asked. Now, I said, I don't want your destruction. I just don't want your shadow over my life anymore. He looked up at me through the camera. Our eyes met. What do you want then? He asked quietly. I thought of Lena, of the young women emailing me saying, I'm building my first course and your tool made me feel like I wasn't stupid. I thought of my small team, 2 developers, 1 support lead, 1 designer, laughing on late-night Slack chats, sharing memes and bug reports like a strange family. I thought of my notebook with those 4 ugly words. Success is my revenge. I want to keep building what I'm building, I said, on my own terms, with the people who believed in it before it was a good LinkedIn post, without being tangled up in your drama again. He nodded slowly. So that's a no, he said, trying to smile. That's a no, I confirmed. A polite one, but a firm one. Firm, he swallowed. I had a feeling, he admitted. But I had to ask. I know, I said. Silence stretched between us, not angry, not comfortable, just real. I am sorry, he said again. I know that doesn't make a difference, but I am. It makes a difference to you, I said. And maybe that's the point now. You get to live with what you did. I get to live with what I do next. He nodded. Do you ever... he began, then stopped. What? I asked. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't, done what I did? He finished weakly. I thought about that version of the timeline, the one where I stayed, where he kept taking more and more credit while I did more and more work, where I became VP of product in title but never in power, where I kept shrinking to fit the shape of his story. Sometimes, I admitted. Then I remember something. What's that? He asked. If you hadn't pushed me out, I said quietly, I never would have left. I would have kept compromising, kept hoping you'd change, kept telling myself that my value came from how useful I was to you. He looked stricken. Getting fired was one of the worst pains of my life, I continued, but it was also the only thing brutal enough to break me out of your orbit. We both sat with that for a moment. Goodbye, Ryan, I said softly. I really do hope you learn how to win without standing on anyone else." He let out a shaky breath.
"Goodbye, Maya," he said. I'm glad you proved me wrong."
I smiled faintly. "I didn't build Rise Frame to prove you wrong," I said. "I built it to prove myself right." Then I ended the call, closed the laptop, and sat there in the quiet of my apartment, feeling something I hadn't felt since long before Streamline. Free. Not because he was suffering, but because finally, whether he rose or fell, didn't matter. My story wasn't about him anymore. Time moved on. Rise Frame scaled with Mega Media. We hired more people slowly, carefully, not because some investor yelled, "Grow faster" in my ear, but because the work demanded it. We built a real support team. We added engineers who actually cared about the creators on the other side of their code. We brought on a community manager who could talk to users like humans instead of ticket numbers. I stopped answering every email myself. I stopped coding every deploy. I started doing something scarier, leading. Our first retreat wasn't at some fancy resort. It was at a cheap Airbnb 2 hours outside the city. 6 of us crammed into bunk beds and pull-out couches, whiteboards propped up against windows, takeout boxes piling on the counter. On the last night, we sat in a circle on the floor, tired and happy. "So," Nora, our support lead, asked, "when's the Netflix documentary about your revenge arc coming out?" Everyone laughed. I rolled my eyes. "That's not what this is," I said. "Come on," one of the engineers, Jamal, grinned. "You cannot tell me there isn't a small, petty part of you that loves the fact Mega Media chose us over the company that fired you." I sipped my soda, considering. "There's a small part," I admitted, "but that part gets quieter every year." I looked around at them, at the messy, brilliant humans who had chosen to build this thing with me. "What's louder," I said, "is the part that's proud we're still here." 3 years after that Mega Media call, I found myself backstage at the Creators Forward Summit, an industry event, panels, keynotes, sponsor booths with overpriced swag. Rise Frame was one of the main sponsors. Our logo, even nicer now, cleaned up by a real designer, glowed on banners around the hall. "Next up," the event coordinator said, "Panel 4, Tools of Tomorrow. You'll be on stage with 2 other founders. And," she glanced at her clipboard, "oh, Streamline's CEO is on that one too." I already knew. When they'd sent the panel lineup, I'd felt that old tightness in my chest for a second. Then it passed. "Got it," I said now. "Thanks." I stood in the wings, watching the panel before mine wrap up. The moderator thanked them. People clapped. "Coming up," her voice rang out, "we have a really exciting conversation. 3 founders whose platforms have shaped how creators work every day. The CEO of Collab Cloud, the CEO of Streamline, and the CEO of Rise Frame, Maya Chen." My name echoed through the room. I stepped into the lights. The applause rolled toward me. I spotted a few familiar faces. Lena, near the front, waving like a proud sister. Jess, from Mega Media, giving me a thumbs up. In the second row, a cluster of women in colorful blazers I didn't know, but who smiled at me like they did. On the other side of the stage, walking out from the opposite wing, was Ryan. He wore a nice suit, like always, but the way he carried himself had changed. Less swagger, more care. We took our seats. The moderator did her usual introductions. Ryan Reed, founder and CEO of Streamline. Maya Chen, founder and CEO of Rise Frame. The difference between hearing his right hand and founder in front of my name was not lost on me. We talked about feature creep, about burnout, about the weight of building tools that control people's livelihoods. We even agreed on some things. Then the moderator, who was better at her job than I wanted her to be in that moment, smiled slyly. "So," she said, "the 2 of you have a bit of a shared history." The crowd chuckled. Some people who already knew the story straightened up. Others leaned forward, curious. "Would you be willing to talk about that?" she asked. About what it's like to go from colleagues to competitors to, apparently, partners in a new deal. All eyes turned to us. The old me would have panicked. The angry me would have spewed every detail of the betrayal like poison. The healed me took a breath. "It was messy," I said simply, and the room laughed. I smiled. "I'm not going to stand up here and give you a sanitized version," I went on. "I worked at Streamline. I helped build the early product. I was fired in a way that hurt deeply and felt unfair. For a long time, I was drowned in hate. Hate for him, hate for myself for trusting him. Hate for an industry that treated me like the easily replaced girl behind the genius man." The room was silent now. Ryan's gaze was steady. "I wanted revenge," I said. "The loud kind. The kind where you expose someone and watch the likes roll in." I looked out at the audience. "You know what I learned?" I asked. "Revenge in your head is satisfying. Revenge in real life is time-consuming and very, very expensive." A ripple of nervous laughter. "It eats your hours, your focus, your creativity," I said. "And the worst part? It keeps them at the center of your life." I touched my chest lightly. "At some point," I continued, "I realized I didn't want my story to be the girl who got even with her old boss. I wanted it to be the woman who built something so solid she didn't have to think about him at all." I glanced at Ryan. "I don't forgive everything," I said, "but I chose to move my energy from tearing him down to building something up. For myself, and for people like the ones sitting here today." The moderator turned to him. "Ryan, do you want to respond to that?" she asked. He took a breath. "Yeah," he said. "I do." He looked out at the crowd. "When you're young and hungry and people start clapping for you," he said, "it's very easy to start believing your own myth." I did. I started thinking I was the sole visionary, the genius, the one people were here for. He glanced at me. "In the process," he continued, "I treated people, including Maya, like tools, not partners. I justified decisions as for the company, when really they were for my ego." A murmur moved through the audience. "It worked, for a while," he said. "We raised money, we signed deals, we got press. But here's the thing. People matter more than momentum. And when you push away the ones holding your company together, you can't be surprised when it falls apart." He paused. "Losing Mega Media hurt," he said. "Seeing their email about moving to RiseFrame, it stung. Not because they chose a worse product, because they chose a better one. One built by someone I pushed out the door." He turned fully toward me. "I deserve to watch that happen," he said quietly. The room was very quiet now. I felt hundreds of gazes flick between us. "This is not a redemption speech," he added. "I'm not asking you to clap for my growth. I'm just saying, if you're building something, remember that the people who help you in the early days are not temporary scaffolding. They're the building." The moderator nodded slowly. "Thank you," she said. "Both of you." We wrapped the panel. The applause this time felt different. Not just like noise, like a release. Later, on the conference floor, a steady stream of people came by the RiseFrame booth. Creators, small founders, students. One young woman, maybe 22, hovered at the edge until the crowd thinned. She wore an oversized denim jacket and clutched her tote bag like a shield. "Hi," she said, voice timid. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course," I said, smiling. She swallowed. "I watched the panel," she said. I'm in the middle of something like what you described. Someone took my work, my ideas. They're wearing them like a costume and everyone's clapping." Her face twisted. "I'm so angry I can't think straight most days," she confessed. "I want to destroy them, make sure everyone knows what they did. But hearing you talk, I don't know. I don't want to spend the next 5 years of my life chasing them either." Tears were bright in her eyes, but she blinked them back. "How did you know?" she whispered. "When it was time to stop focusing on them?" How did you know when to start focusing on you? I thought of my notebook, of that ugly all-caps sentence, of all the times I held it like a weapon. I didn't know, I said gently. Not at first. I just woke up one day and realized that every hour I spent thinking about what he did was an hour I wasn't spending building anything for myself. I let that sink in. Here's what helped me, I continued. I asked myself, if somehow the universe guaranteed me that they would get exactly what they deserve one day, what would I do with my time right now? She frowned, thinking, because if the answer is still, I'd keep watching them, I said softly. Then they own your life. Even if they're terrible. Even if you're right. A tear rolled down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly. I don't want them to own my life, she whispered. Good, I said. That's your starting point. Be angry. Feel it. Write it down. Scream into a pillow if you have to. Then, when you're tired of that, put one tiny piece of your energy into something that's just yours. She nodded, eyes shining. An idea, I said. A sketch, a plan, a tiny project, something they can't claim because they weren't there when you thought it up. She let out a shaky breath. It'll feel small at first, I went on. Unimportant, especially compared to the fireworks going off around their success. But keep feeding it, quietly, steadily. One day, you'll look up, and that little thing will be big enough that you don't have room in your hands to hold your hatred anymore. She smiled through her tears. Thank you, she whispered. Really? Hey, I said as she turned to leave. One more thing. She looked back. Success can start as revenge, I said. That's okay. Use it. Let it pull you out of bed. But if you do this right, it stops being about them. It starts being about you. And that's when it actually feels good. She nodded, pressed her lips together, and disappeared into the crowd. That night, after the booths closed and the banners came down, I wandered back into the empty ballroom. The chairs were half stacked. The stage was bare. A cleaning crew moved quietly along the walls. I walked to the center of the stage and looked out at the scattered seats. I thought about the girl who walked home in the rain, about the woman who walked onto this stage under lights, no longer shaking. I took out my phone and opened the photo of my notebook. Success is my revenge. This is my I win button. I smiled a little. I opened a new note and typed, Success might start as revenge. The sweetest success is when you don't need revenge anymore. I stood there for a minute, letting that sink in. Because that was the real ending of my story. Not a headline, not a deal, not a panel. The real ending was this. The day my desire to win stopped being about making him lose. The day my life became heavier with my own dreams than with his mistakes. If you're watching this, if any part of this sounds like your life, I want you to hear me now, clear and close. You are allowed to want justice. You are allowed to want the truth out. You are allowed to replay what they did and feel your chest tighten. But don't stay there so long that you forget you have a future. They may have taken your job, your credit, your time, your trust. They did not take your ability to build again. That's yours. It always has been. Your I win button is not one big moment where they fall to their knees and beg for forgiveness. It's 100 small choices. Choosing to rest instead of stalking their feeds. Choosing to open your own files instead of their press. Choosing to pour into an idea that has your fingerprints, not theirs. One day, without even realizing it, you will look around and see a life they had nothing to do with. A team that doesn't know their name. Customers who found you without their help. Joy that doesn't tremble when you see their face online. And in that quiet, steady moment, you will feel it. You will feel deep in your bones. I win. Not because they lost, but because you are finally, fully, undeniably you. And that will be the sweetest revenge of all.